What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. Bring you guys in a fantasy football video. I know I'm still traveling right now. I'm in Denver right now for work, so not with my usual setup. So obviously the production quality is going to be a little bit worse this week, but still be recording. I've brought at least same microphone and everything, and we're recording from a laptop. So overall production quality should be a little bit lower this week, but I'll still get you guys all the videos. Hopefully I can get you guys all the same content, and happy to still be answering all of your questions and all that. So it's been really exciting first 5 weeks of the NFL season. It was a really exciting week 5. We had a lot of really big performances and bounce back performances from guys who have so far really just disappointed. And it's really great to see some of these superstars actually come out and really perform at a high level. So a lot that's going on so far this week in the season. Week 6, we've got a lot of buys. We've got a lot of sort of minor injuries we've got to keep in mind as well. And it's going to actually make the waiver wire a little bit more interesting this week than what we saw last week. Last week was a pretty down week, but I think there's actually plenty of names on the list this week that should be taken into account. So I'll go position by position here, tell you guys which guys I'd be looking at. And then, as always, if you guys have any specific add or drop questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to get back to you guys as soon as I can and help you guys get those rosters and waivers claims set up before waivers run in your league. So yeah, at that, let's get into the quarterback position. So for the quarterback position, Russell Wilson was totally my priority ad. He's been a top 10 quarterback like every single week so far this season. He's continuing to run the ball quite a bit. This is his second game with over 40 rushing yards. He had 49 rushing yards in this one. He's got 11 passing touchdowns to 2 interceptions. I know this Broncos defense is awful, and this team is awful, really. They're 1-4. They're not going to really go anywhere. And there is a real world that exists where at some point we do see Sean Payton and this Broncos team really just tear it all down. We could see a scenario where Russell Wilson ends up getting benched for Jarrett Stidham. It wouldn't really be a performance benching, but it would just be they want to move away. They're tanking for Caleb Williams, and they just want to sort of throw Russell Wilson onto the bench, sort of like what the Raiders did at the end of last year. And in all honesty, it was for Jarrett Stidham as well, which is funny. But I think we'll see Russell Wilson continue to perform at a high level for a fantasy standpoint until that happens, if it does happen. And he's got a plus matchup again against the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs defense is really good, but this is going to be a Chiefs offense. It's going to put up plenty of points to this Broncos defense, despite potentially not having Travis Kelce. The Broncos will have to score a lot of points if they want to keep up, and the Broncos will lose this game, but they'll probably put up 20 plus points in this one. I bet Russell Wilson ends up with 2 passing touchdowns and runs a little bit, so he could certainly be used. CJ Stroud, he's got that I'd be comfortable with going forward the rest of the season. He's just looked really good. He probably got added at some point already in your league, but if he's still available, I'd certainly take a look at him. He's just looked really good. I think he's honestly poised to be a franchise quarterback for the Texans. They fixed that quarterback issue going forward, and he's got good enough pass catchers around him that I'm super excited about him. So he should be on rosters, and then you can play him in positive matchups. Matthew Stafford should also be added. They've got a plus matchup against the Arizona Cardinals this week. We saw Cooper Kupp come back and look absolutely fantastic in his return to action. I know they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, but this is a Rams team that looks relatively decent. They've got 2 straight good matchups coming up against the Cardinals, and then I'm blanking on the second matchup, but it's a positive matchup as well. The Rams are going to be a team that's going to be able to move the ball well. The defense is really the issue for this team, and their passing games looks really great. So I want to have pieces, and in plus matchup, Stafford's a great option to play and stream, or even use as like a weekly starter if you need to. Sam Howell, he's a good streamer. We've seen that this Commanders offense has performed pretty well so far this season. They got a decent matchup against the Falcons this week. Sam Howell could certainly be used. And then Baker Mayfield coming off a bye. They play the Detroit Lions. Then the Lions' run defense has been fantastic, and their offense is obviously great as well, but the Buccaneers will be playing from behind in this one. Their pass defense is one that can get beat. We just saw Bryce Young throw 3 touchdowns in this game. Baker Mayfield could certainly be used as a streaming option as well. At the running back position, my number 1 now would be Tyjae Spears. Talked about him a little bit so far on the waiver wire series so far this season, but he continues to be super involved in this offense. It's the second or third time this season he's actually outsnapped Derrick Henry. He touched the ball quite a bit. He scored his first career touchdown this last week. He's involved in the pass catching game, and this Titans team is not good enough to be dominating teams. And in games where they're behind, Tyjae Spears is going to get a lot of pass catching work. And if anything ever happens to Derrick Henry, then obviously Tyjae Spears would be an absolute monster for your fantasy team. Next up, we've got Roschon Johnson. Keep in mind, he is in concussion protocol after their game last Thursday, but Khalil Herbert suffered a high ankle sprain. He'll probably miss, 3 to 6 weeks. I'm not by any means a doctor. I have no idea exactly how long he'll be out. But Roschon Johnson will be the number 1 running back on this depth chart as long as Khalil Herbert misses time, and he will be missing some time. If Roschon Johnson were unable to go in this next matchup against the Vikings, you could see a lot of Deontay Foreman potentially be involved in this offense. He'd be like a lower priority ad if you want to just sort of desperation pick up a running back. Roschon Johnson would be my priority here. He's a better pass catcher. He's looked good so far this season, and if he's given a workload that we should expect to see if Khalil Herbert's out, he'd be a good ad and a good plug and play like RB2 until Khalil Herbert's back. After that, we've got Emari Demercado. He's the backup running back for the Arizona Cardinals. If any of you guys don't know, Deontay Ingram's been missing some time, but we did see James Conner leave this game with an injury. Their head coach came out and said that James Conner should miss quote unquote some time. We don't really know what that means. He seemed mostly okay. I don't think it's anything serious, but James Conner's probably going to miss a game or two. And any kind of player that's going to get enough volume like that, Demercado's probably going to get 15 to 20 touches. This Cardinals offense actually hasn't looked all that bad. So Demercado is like a nice low end running back two, guy that you could use certainly going forward, especially in a decent matchup against the Rams this next week. Chuba Hubbard continues to be involved for the Panthers. Miles Sanders just looks really bad right now. I think he's still clearly dealing with that groin injury, but Chuba Hubbard's still being involved in this offense. He's given the 2-minute role in the offense as well. And if anything actually happened to Miles Sanders, where we saw Sanders completely miss a game, then Chuba Hubbard would be a guy that you could play as a low end running back too. And even with Miles Sanders active, you can actually play Hubbard if you need to. So Chuba should probably be on rosters. Kendre Miller is another guy that I'd look to add. He had his first really good game so far for the Saints this last week. Scored a touchdown. He just looked really good. He was really involved in the offense. He's a really good pass catcher. I know this is very clearly Alvin Kamara's backfield, but I think Kendre Miller is like the 1B. He's more of a 2A, really. It's not a timesheet like we thought it might be, but he's a good enough player. I like the talent of Kendre Miller. If something were to happen to Alvin Kamara, then Miller would be a really quality asset for you guys. Jordan Mason, another guy I want to talk about. He pretty securely seems to be the backup running back for the San Francisco 49ers now. Elijah Mitchell's just unable to stay healthy. Jordan Mason has looked good in his time. He actually technically outscored Christian McCaffrey in fantasy this last week, just as the garbage time run up against the Dallas Cowboys. But the fact of the matter is he's involved in the offense. He is the backup. And if something ever happened to McCaffrey, Jordan Mason would be a rock solid asset for you guys. So he should probably be on rosters. And Ezekiel Elliott, he continues to be involved. I know this Patriots offense looks really bad, but he's given guaranteed touches in an offense. So if you want to use him, you could certainly do a lot worse than Ezekiel Elliott as like a really deep league non-PPR desperation RB2 or something if you needed him. At the wide receiver position, my number one ad here, he's probably rostered, but if for whatever reason, maybe he got dropped after his 0-point performance in week 4, Jordan Addison should be added. He had 6 catches for over 60 yards and a touchdown this last week. We saw Justin Jefferson leave the game with a knee injury that it sounds like is going to sideline him for at least a week, maybe 2. With that happening, Jordan Addison becomes the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and they've got a really great matchup in week 6 against the Chicago Bears. Jordan Addison's going to be a rock solid wide receiver 2 for the games that Justin Jefferson misses, and obviously I think Jordan Addison's going to come on going down the stretch. So if you want to buy low or even just sort of buy a little bit high on Jordan Addison, I think you could do that. After that, Joshua Palmer should be out rostered. Maybe he got dropped last week because the Chargers were on bye. No, he didn't have a great performance in week 4, but he's been a very capable receiver for this Chargers offense. He actually led the team in targets in week 4. After the bye, it'll be interesting to see how they shake things out between him and Quentin Johnston. Johnston's on this list as well as a guy that should be added, but I think that Joshua Palmer is pretty clearly going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense. I've just been unimpressed with Johnston so far in the regular season, and I think Joshua Palmer is going to be involved in this offense enough that you can actually use him as like a wide receiver 3 or flex play. After that, we've got Rashee Rice. He continues to be more and more involved for the Kansas City Chiefs. He looks really good for them. He's probably their wide receiver that I want to be rostering in fantasy. He's just seeing more and more snaps in the field. It sounds like he's sort of just had some trouble understanding the playbook so far, but the talent's there. They've talked a lot about wanting to get him more involved as the season goes on, and Rashee Rice should certainly be on rosters, and I think eventually he's going to be a decent like wide receiver 3 for you guys. DJ Chark could be rostered as well. He's pretty clearly the deep threat for the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers don't really have much of a vertical passing game because Bryce Young doesn't have much of an arm. Their offensive line hasn't been great either, but DJ Chark did score in this one. I do think there's a chance that he ends up being the wide receiver you want to own down the stretch in Carolina. Obviously, Adam Thielen's been fantastic so far, but Chark's been good in his first career, and he's a guy that can certainly be rostered as well. Josh Reynolds continues to perform well for the Detroit Lions. He's pretty clearly the wide receiver 2 for them. Jameson Williams, I know he's on this list as well, but Williams looked very uninvolved in this offense. I do think things get better for Jameson Williams as well. I think they should both be rostered, but Josh Reynolds is clearly involved in the offense. They will find themselves in situations where they'll have to score more than what they have so far as well. They will play some better offenses, and I think that until I see Jameson Williams really pass him on the depth chart, Josh Reynolds should probably be rostered. It can be played as like a deep league flex player, wide receiver 3 if you need him. Curtis Samuel, that's 2 straight weeks. He's been really involved with the Washington Commanders. He was effectively the wide receiver 1 for the Commanders this last week. He also led the team in targets just 2 weeks ago as well. He's got the manufactured touches for. He's actually a talented player. He's just not on the level of Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin from a talent standpoint, but any guy that's getting that much volume, he's a guy that you can use in a PPR format as a flex spot. And you could do a lot worse than him. So he should certainly be rostered just with how involved he is. Josh Downs really had a great game this last week, almost had 100 receiving yards. Gardner Minshew really likes peppering him with targets, and we saw Anthony Richardson leave this game with this AC joint sprain. Sounds like he's probably going to miss a better part of a month, if not more. And Gardner Minshew is going to make this passing game a little bit more reliable. We should see more passing volume in the offense. And Josh Downs is a guy that Gardner Minshew clearly seems to like. So Josh Downs should absolutely be on rosters at this point. Wan'Dale Robinson, again, he's clearly operating as the number one wide receiver in New York at this point. Obviously, it hasn't been great from a fantasy standpoint just because this Giants offense is awful. We also saw Daniel Jones leave the game with an injury, so they could have Tyrod Taylor for week 6 against the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, it's a really bad matchup, but Wan'Dale Robinson being the wide receiver one of this team, they'll manufacture touches for him. He's a guy that you could use as a deep league flex play. And I think he's talented enough that we could see some spike weeks from him eventually. And the last guy I haven't talked about here, KJ Osborne. Same thing with Jordan Addison. We do know that Justin Jefferson's going to miss some time. That opens up more opportunities for KJ Osborne. Osborne's looked really bad so far this year, so I don't love it, but Osborne has been involved so far in his career. He's a good enough player. This is a good enough Vikings offense that you could use Osborne as like a flex player, wide receiver 3 if you want to, while Jefferson's out. Next, we got the tight end position. Logan Thomas would be my priority add here. He's been really involved with the Commanders offense. He just looks really good, even though he's obviously missed some time with injury. But when he's healthy, they are utilizing him a ton in the passing game. He'd be my priority add if you need a tight end to fill in. They've got a decent matchup against the Falcons this week. Speaking of the Falcons, Jonnu Smith would be my next add. This is like 3 straight weeks. He's been very involved with this Falcons offense. I know Kyle Pitts was really good as well this week, but Jonnu Smith has still been the better performing asset so far from a fantasy standpoint. He gets more targets close to the line of scrimmage, and that's really what Desmond Ritter's better at. We know Ritter's not going to be a fantastic quarterback, so those close to the line of scrimmage targets are going to be really consistent and something we can kind of rely on for Jonnu Smith, especially in the PPR format. And then Dalton Schultz, I want to bring him up. He had a really good game in week 5, scored a touchdown for the first time this season, and Tank Dell did leave this game with an injury. Robert Woods left the game with an injury as well, and that opens up a lot of opportunity for Dalton Schultz being the number 2 option potentially in this offense next week behind Nico Collins. They're at home against the Saints next week, so it's not a great matchup, but CJ Stroud's been so great that if you want to play Dalton Schultz, if both Tank Dell and Robert Woods miss this next game, I think Dalton Schultz could be a really quality streaming asset for you guys. And then lastly, we've got the defenses here. The Dolphins would be my priority add here. You probably got them last week. I talked about them as a really great option against the Giants, but if for whatever reason they aren't rostered, you can go kick them up again. They play the Panthers this week. That's really great for them. They'll have a really quality performance again. The Rams are another good option. They play the Arizona Cardinals. I know the Cardinals have looked better so far, but they're not by any means an offense that really scares you. This is a good pass rush from the Rams, so you could certainly do worse there. And then the Titans are a good option as well. I know they had a bad week this last week against the Colts, but the Ravens looked really bad on offense so far. The Titans have a really quality pass rush, and Lamar's made some mistakes so far this season as well. So you could do worse than those guys as well. So I think the Titans are a decent option as well if you want to look there. So that'll do it for the waiver wire video. I hope you guys are okay with this format. I'm sort of just doing the whole thing in one take, and it's really what I got to do with the setup I've got working. But I'll still get you guys these videos this week. I want to make sure that we don't miss anything. I want to make sure you guys get all this content. So I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Tomorrow, you guys will get the buy low and sell high videos where I'll go over trade targets, one of my favorite videos to make every single week. So I hope you guys like those videos. I hope you guys subscribe to the channel so you get access to those. And then obviously you guys will get the Thursday night primer and the start sit videos later on in the week as well. So super exciting. We're officially a third of the way through the regular season for fantasy football. Lots of time to go though. Plenty of time to make your teams better. Waivers is a great way to do that. And I'll be here all season long to help you guys do that. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions in the comments, let me know. I love interacting with you guys there, and I'll catch you next time.